Thwack! The screaming human's head snapped sideways as the Lurian gunbutt smashed his jaw, spattering teeth across the station's blood-stained alley. The war-ravaged soldier, Ricky Miller, slumped against the wall, smirking through the pain at the silver-skinned alien enforcer looming over him. "That all you got, shitstain?" Ricky spat a glob of crimson phlegm on the Lurian's boot. "I've taken worse beatings from angry toddlers." The Lurian snarled, seizing Ricky's collar and slamming him against the wall. "Listen up, ape. Zephyr is offering you a job against my recommendations. Says we need a guide for some uncharted shithole. But if you want to keep breathing, you'll do exactly as I say when I say it. Understand?" Ricky sneered, his tone dripping with disdain. "You couldn't find your ass with both hands and a map, so now you need a human to do your job for you? Typical." The alien's luminous eyes narrowed. "Watch your mouth, primate. The only reason your kind hasn't been wiped out is because you're not worth the effort. But keep testing me, and I'll gladly make an exception." Ricky's grin widened as he shoved the Lurian back. "Yeah, well, the feeling's mutual, Chuckles. Now let's talk business. What's the job?" As the Lurian ship pierced the atmosphere of X-372, Ricky noticed some odd energy spikes on the scanners. "Hey, Chuckles, take a look at this," Ricky called out, gesturing to the screen. "I thought this rock was supposed to be uninhabited, but I'm picking up some serious tech signatures down there. Looks like a pretty big settlement, too." Commander Zahn stomped over, his silver skin gleaming under the ship's lights. He glared at the readings for a moment before shaking his head. "Probably just some old ruins. Stick to the mission, human. We're not here to play archaeologist." Ricky shrugged, leaning back in his seat. "Whatever you say, boss. But don't come crying to me when we run into trouble." The ship touched down near the ruins, a sprawling complex of ancient structures that seemed to be made of some kind of unknown metal alloy. Ricky, Zephyr, and a squad of Lurian soldiers disembarked to explore the ruins, while the rest of the crew set up a base camp. As they made their way through the winding corridors, Ricky couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. His hand hovered near his blaster, ready for trouble. Suddenly, a group of figures emerged from the shadows, surrounding the expedition team. Ricky's eyes widened in surprise when he realized they weren't facing some primitive alien race, but other humans. A woman with short black hair and a battle-scarred face stepped forward, her laser rifle trained on Commander Zahn. "I'm Captain Arya Novak of the Terran Expeditionary Force," she said, her voice hard as steel. "You have about 5 seconds to explain what the hell you're doing on our planet before I start putting holes in you." Commander Zahn held up his hands, trying to look non-threatening. "Easy there, Captain. We're just peaceful explorers here to study these fascinating ruins. We had no idea there were humans in this system." Arya scoffed, her finger tightening on the trigger. "Bullshit. We've been monitoring your comms since you entered orbit. We know exactly why you're here, and it ain't for some damn archaeological dig." Tension skyrocketed as the Lurians and humans aimed their weapons at each other, ready to blow this powder keg sky high. Ricky knew he had to do something fast before this whole thing went sideways. He stepped forward, hands raised in a placating gesture. Whoa, let's all just take a deep breath here. I'm sure we can work this out without anyone getting ventilated." Arya eyed him suspiciously. "And who the hell are you supposed to be?" "Name's Ricky Miller. I'm just a hired gun along for the ride. But I've got a proposition for you. How about we set up a little meeting between you and the big boss here? Sit down, hash out our differences, maybe find some common ground. What do you say?" Arya considered for a moment before lowering her rifle slightly. "Fine. But if any of your Lurian buddies so much as twitch wrong, we'll paint the walls with their insides." As the two groups cautiously retreated to their respective bases, Ricky couldn't help but wonder what the hell was going on here. How did humans end up on this backwater planet? And why were the Lurians so dead set on avoiding them? Something wasn't adding up, and Ricky was determined to get to the bottom of it. Back at the Lurian base camp, Ricky stormed into Commander Zahn's quarters, slamming his fist on the table. "All right, Chuckles, cut the bullshit. What's the real reason we're here? And don't give me that peaceful exploration crap." Zahn's silver skin shimmered as he sighed, leaning back in his chair. Fine human. You want the truth? Decades ago we intercepted a distress signal from X-372. It came from a lost human colony ship that had crash-landed here. We feared that if the humans gained a foothold in our territory, they could become a threat to Lurian dominance. Ricky's eyes narrowed. So what, you decided to come here and wipe them out, just like that? If necessary, yes. We couldn't risk them gaining access to the ancient technology on this planet. It could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. Are you fucking kidding me? Ricky slammed his hands on the table, his voice rising with each word. These people have been here for generations, building a life for themselves. They have every right to live peacefully on this planet they now call home. You can't just come in and neutralize them, because you're afraid of a little competition. Zahn's eyes flashed with anger. Watch your tone, primate. The Lurian Empire will do whatever it takes to maintain our position in the galaxy. If that means eliminating a potential threat, so be it. Ricky shook his head in disgust. You know what? Fuck you and your empire. I'm done being your little errand boy. He stormed out of the room, his mind racing. He had to warn Arya and her people about the Lurians' true intentions. As the meeting between Captain Arya Novak and Commander Zahn began, the tension in the air was palpable. Ricky stood off to the side, his arms crossed, watching as the two leaders faced off. I want a straight answer, Lurian, Arya said, her voice cold as ice. Why are you really here? Zahn's face remained impassive. As I've said, Captain, we are merely here to study these fascinating ruins. We had no idea there was a human presence on this planet. Arya scoffed. Don't lie to me, we both know that's not the truth. Ricky stepped forward, clearing his throat. If I may, I think I have a solution that could benefit both parties. Arya and Zahn turned to him, their eyebrows raised. The Lurians have advanced technology that could greatly improve the lives of the humans here. In exchange for sharing that technology, the humans could grant the Lurians access to the ancient ruins for study. A mutual exchange of knowledge and resources. Arya's eyes narrowed. And why should we trust them? They've already lied to us once. Zahn's jaw tightened. The human is right, cooperation would be mutually beneficial, but we would need assurances that our technology would not be used against us. Ricky held up his hands. Look, I get it. There's a lot of bad blood between your two species, but if you keep fighting each other, nobody wins. This is a chance to build a better future together. Just as it seemed like an agreement might be reached, a sudden explosion rocked the meeting site. Ricky was thrown to the ground, his ears ringing from the blast. He looked up to see Lurian soldiers, led by a rogue faction within the expedition team, attacking the humans with ruthless efficiency. Zephyr, what the hell? Ricky shouted, scrambling to his feet. Zephyr, his once friend and crewmate, sneered at him. Sorry, Ricky, but the Empire comes first. These humans are a threat that must be eliminated. Ricky's eyes darted between the Lurians and the humans, his mind racing. He had to make a choice, and fast. With a growl of frustration, he drew his blaster and turned to Arya. Looks like we're on the same side now, Captain. Let's show these Lurian bastards what happens when they mess with the wrong humans. Together, Ricky and Arya led the human defenders against the Lurian aggressors, their weapons blazing in the chaos of battle. As they fought their way through the ruins, Ricky spotted a hidden chamber, its entrance partially obscured by rubble. There, he shouted, pointing. That might be our ticket out of this mess. He and Arya fought their way into the chamber, only to find themselves face to face with a glowing, pulsing artifact that hummed with ancient power. What the hell is that thing? Arya breathed, her eyes wide. Before Ricky could respond, Commander Zahn and his loyal soldiers burst into the chamber, their weapons trained on the humans. Step away from the artifact, Zahn ordered, his voice cold. It belongs to the Lurian Empire now. Ricky and Arya exchanged a glance, their hands tightening on their weapons. They were caught between three factions, each with their own agenda. The fate of the planet, and perhaps the galaxy, hung in the balance. Ricky stepped forward, placing himself between Arya and Commander Zarn. Look, we're not going to get anywhere by fighting over this thing. Let's call a truce and figure out what the hell it is before we start blasting each other. Zarn's luminous eyes narrowed, but after a tense moment he lowered his weapon. Very well, human, a temporary truce for now. But make no mistake, the artifact will be coming with us when we leave. Arya scoffed. Like hell it will. This is our planet, our discovery. You don't get to just swoop in and claim it for yourselves. As the three leaders bickered, Ricky moved closer to the artifact, examining its intricate symbols and pulsing energy core. Hey, guys, I think you might want to take a look at this. The artifact began to glow brighter, and suddenly a holographic figure appeared above it, a tall, slender being with luminescent skin and piercing eyes. It spoke in a language none of them understood, but as it continued, the words seemed to translate themselves in their minds. Greetings, descendants of Earth and Luria. If you are seeing this message, then our worst fears have come to pass. The Krath have returned. The hologram shifted, displaying images of a once great civilization, with towering cities and advanced technology beyond anything they had ever seen. But then the images turned dark, showing the devastation wrought by the Krath, cities in ruins, people enslaved or slaughtered. We were once a proud people, but we could not stand against the might of the Krath. In our final days, we hid our greatest inventions and knowledge here on X-372, in the hope that future generations might find them and use them to defend against the Krath's inevitable return. The hologram flickered and faded, leaving them in stunned silence. Ricky was the first to speak. Well, shit. Looks like we've got bigger problems than just a pissing contest over some ancient tech. Arya nodded grimly. If these Krath are as bad as they say, we're going to need all the help we can get. I hate to say it, but we might just have to work together on this one. Commander Zarn looked as if he'd just swallowed a live grenade, but he grudgingly agreed. The Empire will not be caught unprepared. We will share our knowledge and resources, but make no mistake, we are not friends, merely allies of convenience. Ricky clapped his hands together. Great. Now that we're all one big happy family, let's get to work. We've got a planet to fortify and some alien assholes to blast back to whatever hellhole they crawled out of. Over the next few weeks, Ricky found himself playing the role of ambassador, facilitating cooperation between the humans and the Lurians as they worked to unravel the secrets of the ancient technology. It wasn't easy. Decades of mistrust and animosity didn't just vanish overnight, but slowly they began to make progress. Under Arya's leadership, the human settlers worked to fortify their defenses, while Zarn's scientists studied the artifacts, reverse engineering the advanced weaponry and shielding systems. Ricky bounced between the two groups, offering his expertise as a soldier and a scavenger, helping to integrate the new tech into their existing arsenal. But just as they were starting to make real headway, disaster struck. The rogue Lurian faction, led by Zephyr, launched a surprise attack on the human settlement, catching them off guard. Explosions rocked the compound as Zephyr's soldiers stormed the defenses, determined to claim the ancient technology for themselves. Ricky grabbed his rifle and sprinted towards the front lines, joining Arya and her soldiers as they fought to repel the attackers. The battle was brutal, with heavy casualties on both sides. Through the smoke and chaos, Ricky spotted Zephyr, his former friend, leading the charge. With a roar of fury, Ricky charged towards him, dodging enemy fire and leaping over rubble. He tackled Zephyr to the ground, and the two of them grappled in the dirt, trading blows and curses. "So fucking traitor," Ricky snarled, slamming his fist into Zephyr's jaw. "We were supposed to be on the same side." Zephyr spat blood, his eyes burning with hatred. "The only side I'm on is the Empire's, and if you're not with us, you're against us." He shoved Ricky off him and staggered to his feet, raising his blaster. But before he could fire, a bolt of plasma slammed into his chest, sending him crumpling to the ground. Ricky looked up to see Arya, her rifle smoking, a grim expression on her face. "Thanks for the save," Ricky panted, climbing to his feet. Arya nodded curtly. "Don't mention it, now let's finish this." Together they rallied the human defenders, pushing back against the rogue Lurians with everything they had. But even as they gained ground, Ricky knew this was only the beginning. With the Krath on the horizon and enemies on all sides, the fight for X-372 and the fate of the galaxy was far from over. As the battle raged on between the rogue Lurians and the newfound alliance of humans and loyal Lurians, Ricky, Arya, and Commander Zahn fought side by side, their weapons blazing in the fray. Ricky barked orders to his makeshift squad, his marine training kicking into high gear as he coordinated their movements and attacks. "Flank left, suppressing fire on the right," Ricky shouted over the din of battle, ducking as a plasma bolt sizzled past his head. Arya and Zahn followed his lead, their own combat skills honed by years of conflict. Together they pushed back against the rogue faction, slowly but surely gaining ground. But just as it seemed they might turn the tide, a new horror descended from the sky. Massive Krath warships, drawn by the activation of the ancient technology, loomed in orbit above X-372. Their weapons charged, the alien vessels unleashed a devastating bombardment on the planet's surface, targeting both the human settlement and the Lurian base camp with ruthless precision. The ground shook beneath their feet as the Krath's assault rained down, explosions ripping through buildings and sending debris flying in all directions. Ricky, Arya, and Zahn exchanged grim looks, the realization dawning on them that this was a fight they could not win through conventional means. "The artifact," Ricky said, his voice hoarse from shouting over the chaos. "It's our only chance." Arya nodded, her face set with determined resolve. "We have to get back to the chamber." Commander Zahn, his silver skin gleaming with sweat and grime, hefted his weapon. "Then let's move. Every second counts." They fought their way through the battle-scarred ruins, dodging Krath dropships as they disgorged heavily armed soldiers onto the planet's surface. The air crackled with energy as the invaders' advanced weaponry clashed with the defenders' desperate stand. Step by blood-soaked step, Ricky, Arya, and Zahn pushed towards the hidden chamber, their path blocked by both rogue Lurians and Krath warriors. They fought with a savage intensity, fueled by the knowledge that the fate of both their peoples hung in the balance. At last, they reached the chamber, the ancient artifact glowing with an eerie, pulsing light. Ricky approached it cautiously, his hand hovering over the intricate controls. "I think I can activate it," he said, his brow furrowed in concentration. "But there's a catch." Arya and Zahn looked at him expectantly, their weapons still trained on the chamber's entrance. "It requires a sacrifice," Ricky explained, his voice heavy with the weight of his words. "The more power we need, the greater the sacrifice." Understanding dawned in their eyes, a somber realization of what must be done. Ricky took a deep breath, his decision made. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady despite the enormity of his choice. "I'll activate the weapon." Arya opened her mouth to protest, but Ricky cut her off with a shake of his head. "There's no other way. If we don't stop the Krath here and now, everything we've fought for will be lost." Commander Zahn, his face etched with a newfound respect for the human he had once dismissed, placed a hand on Ricky's shoulder. "Your sacrifice will not be forgotten, Ricky Miller. We will honor your memory by building a better future for both our peoples." Ricky nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I'm counting on it, Chuckles." He turned back to the artifact, his hands moving over the controls with a sure, steady purpose. As he activated the ancient weapon, a brilliant beam of energy erupted from the planet's surface, lancing up into the sky and engulfing the Krath fleet in a blinding flash of light. The alien ships vaporized instantly, their mighty armada reduced to nothing more than scattered atoms in the void of space. But the cost was high. Ricky, his life force drained by the artifact's insatiable hunger, collapsed to the ground, his body still and lifeless. Arya and Zahn rushed to his side, their faces etched with grief as they cradled their fallen comrade. In the aftermath of the battle, as the smoke cleared and the dust settled, the humans and Lurians came together to mourn the loss of Ricky and all those who had given their lives to defend X-372. They gathered in the ruins of the settlement, their heads bowed in solemn remembrance. Arya and Zaan, united by their shared sorrow and the bonds forged in the crucible of war, stood before the assembled survivors, their voices ringing out with a newfound strength and purpose. "Ricky Miller gave his life so that we might live," Arya said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "He showed us that humans and Lurians can stand together, fight together, and build a better future together." Commander Zaan nodded, his own voice thick with emotion. "We will honor his sacrifice by continuing the work he started. We will rebuild, we will prepare, and we will stand ready to face whatever challenges the universe may throw at us." As the gathering dispersed, each returning to the task of rebuilding and fortifying their world, Arya and Zaan lingered a moment longer, their gazes fixed on the horizon. "He was a true hero," Arya said softly, her hand resting on the hilt of her weapon. "The kind of man who comes along once in a generation." Zaan nodded, his own hand clasping hers in a gesture of solidarity. "And we will make sure that his legacy endures, no matter what the future may bring." The narrator pauses, letting the weight of the tale sink in. The story of Ricky Miller and the battle for X-372 was one that would be told and retold for generations to come, a shining example of the indomitable human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, when all seemed lost and the very fabric of the universe seemed to be unraveling, there were still those who would stand up and fight for what was right. Ricky Miller was one such man, a hero who had given his life so that others might live, and though he was gone, his memory would endure, a beacon of hope and courage in a galaxy that all too often seemed consumed by darkness and despair. The narrator leans back, a wistful smile playing across their face. The story of X-372 was far from over, they knew. There would be other battles to fight, other sacrifices to make, other heroes to rise and fall in the eternal struggle against the forces of chaos and destruction. But for now, in this moment, they could take solace in the knowledge that Ricky Miller's sacrifice had not been in vain, that the light of human courage and determination, no matter how faint, could never be fully extinguished. And with that thought, the narrator falls silent, the tale of X-372 and the hero who gave his all to defend it, echoing in the minds and hearts of all who heard it. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.